That is a difficult question. What advice do you give to parents and teachers? There was a guy who was very popular, Louis L'Amour. He wrote Western novels, and he's self-educated, and he taught himself. And it may have been John Steinbeck who made the statement that if a person doesn't learn to love reading by the age of 9 or 10, they may not ever learn it. And I experienced, when I worked at the bookend, one of the things that they were very interested in, or they were I was the only black person working there, but they had already found that they had a lot of black men that would come in that would buy books on chess, and they would buy books on by Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim, two of the more famous authors who write crime fiction, but really hardcore crime fiction. It's a popular genre now in a lot of black stores. But what those men had in common was that most of them, or not all of them, had been to jail. And they were forced in jail. They started playing checkers, checkers and maybe chess. But they also started reading, and they found that the books that they could read, nobody in their right mind wants to read Shakespeare. It's incredibly boring, almost racist literature. I considered that in high school. I refused to read it because I thought, if you're going to teach me Shakespeare, why don't you teach me some black literature too? Why am I not learning that? But what they found in prisons is that these men coming to prison who are going to have a lot of time would read Iceberg Slim. They would read Donald Goines, who wrote about street literature. That's the term I couldn't think of. They would write about street literature and pimps and gangsters and all of these people. And the fact that these men may come almost illiterate, they could read they could read those books. I think even as a college professor, you would find if you introduced your students to something that they could grapple onto immediately, their reading speed and their reading level is going to increase because it's something that they're going to want to read. But it's hard developing that imagination. And so it's hard for me to offer advice to teachers, and it's hard for me to offer advice to students because I know at the heart of it, they are going to have difficulty picking up a text like Destruction of Black Civilization and reading it. They're going to have trouble reading Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett. But if you can give them something of a literary nature that might appeal to them because they know about it, like everyone, growing up, everyone loved The Godfather. They loved all these black exploitation movies. But you have to give them something that will appeal to them. And that's harder to do because, as a college professor or someone that worked, went to college, you know how hard it is and how you have to apply yourself to reading these books if you want to be successful. But what we don't understand is that a lot of times these students are coming to colleges or they're in high school. They want to learn, but it is really difficult to teach them the standard courses that we were able to read, and that we know that, you may have to study 6-7 hours a night. You may have to read it and take notes. That's very difficult, but if you can get them to a level where they enjoy reading, and then their comprehension picks up, their vocabulary picks up, then I think it would be easier. And I think that's what I would teach, but that's going to be harder said than done.